Have you ever wondered if Naruto Uzumaki and Yuji Itadori performed the fusion dance or the Batara earrings and took on a whole new form? How are their powers combined into unique and world-shattering techniques? And most importantly, how many verses could they solo? Today, let's find out. These two are often compared to one another in anime fandom as scrappy orphan protagonists with an inner demon and a real bloodlust to throw hands. But today, we aren't going to be comparing these two and pitting them against one another, but rather combining them and speculating how these two incredibly powerful protagonists would come together and form the ultimate orphan. Now, because this isn't fanfiction, I won't be jumping through hurdles to figure out how these two characters would not only meet, but also somehow stumble upon a Dragon Ball-esque method of fusion, be it Patara or the Metamoran dance. So, for the sake of simplicity, we're simply going to assume that they'd already fused, and immediately carry on with the breaking down of how ridiculously broken this protagonist fusion actually is. But the question is, which version of Naruto and Yuji are we going to use? Well, if we're taking the principles of DBZ-style fusions and the two participants need to be of roughly equal halves, we run into a small problem here, because I can't say with a straight face that Naruto and Yuji are at all on equal footing by the end of their respective shows. Naruto became one of the most powerful shinobi in existence, and literally had the power of God and anime on his side as he swept through the final villains of the series. And Yuji, well, he's not even the most popular character in his own show. So what we'll do instead is take Naruto at the beginning of Shippuden, fresh out of Jiraiya's boot camp, with all of the crazy jutsu he most certainly learned in the 3 years he spent training with one of the legendary Sannin. Or just that one. And we'll of course take Yuji at the end of the series. I mean, I can't take the anime version for obvious reasons. I mean, what would he really add to this fusion? Moderately powerful punches and the occasional black flash? And for those of you who want to see max power Naruto fused with max power Yuji, stick around to the end of the video and I'm sure you won't be disappointed. As a basis, Yuji has a number of abilities, including Black Flash, which is a distortion in space that can occur when cursed energy is applied 1/1,000,000th of a second of a physical hit, and is said to amplify the destructive power not by 2.5 times, but by the power of 2.5. This is an exponential increase, and the idiosyncrasies of Black Flash are absolutely huge for our fusion. Additionally, a side effect of landing Black Flash is the entering of a state referred to as in the zone, and is a broad statistical amp that allows users who have recently landed a Black Flash to operate at 120% of their maximum potential. Remember this in the zone concept because we're going to have to discuss how this buff works with Naruto's own multipliers. Yuji also has a number of curse techniques since he's the new age Ichigo, i.e. a CRISPR baby, with a genetic makeup that allows him to use blood manipulation, an inherited technique of the Kamo clan. Usually this allows free control of the user's blood, but Yuji generally speaking only has access to piercing blood, and honestly, pretty poor control of the technique as it is. But that won't be a problem, as we'll see later. He also has Sukuna's Shrine, and the ability to apply binding vows to his pre-existing abilities, like he did with Dismantle, allowing him to separate the boundary between soul and thus acting as a form of durability negation, and in Mahito's case, life negation. But I think most importantly, Yuji contributes the reverse curse technique and domain expansion to the fusion. Reverse curse technique by itself is a ridiculous clown fiesta of equations that eventually result in some region hacks that put JJK characters on par with Tsunade or Edo Tensei. Provided the sorcerer has cursed energy to fund their use of RCT, barring decapitation or complete obliteration, it becomes incredibly difficult to kill them, unless your own mangaka hates you for being too popular. And finally, the domain expansion. By creating a barrier, Yuji can lock a number of people within his innate domain and apply a sure hit effect to his techniques. If a person doesn't have a means to escape or resist the effects of a domain, which is not an incredibly common attribute to have, you can consider this a touch of death maneuver. Naruto, on the other hand, is a different beast, but as we discussed, we're going to be taking a simplified version of Naruto for our main look at this fusion, so as to not completely overshadow Yuji, and also to respect the rules of fusion. Shadow Clones, Rasengan, and Kyuubi really make up the entirety of what Naruto is capable of at this point, but the nuances of his abilities really make a difference here and are worth discussing. The reason why Naruto is so powerful, as we all probably know, is due to his insane plot armor. No, his incredible reserves of chakra, as a result of being an Uzumaki with the Kyuubi fueling his reserves. There's no character in the Narutoverse other than literal god characters that have anywhere near as much chakra as Naruto does. And in a verse where quantity and quality are more or less synonymous with power, Naruto really exemplifies the meaning of a true powerhouse. At this point in the series, Naruto can easily manifest 2,000 clones each able to utilize his jutsu and act autonomously. Rasengan and the aforementioned Udama Rasengan are powerful close-range jutsu that do incredible amounts of damage, especially when utilized in tandem with his shadow clones to create diversions and openings for it to successfully land. And lastly, he is the Kyuubi. Unlike his future counterpart, Naruto currently has no access to the depths of Kyuubi's power, unless Kurama specifically is feeling gracious, or Naruto accesses it through rage and allows himself to succumb to the power of the fox and access a few Jinchuriki forms, including initial form, V1, and V2. These forms alone are generally considered to be additive buffs, but Yuji's multipliers come into play here. So with the general breakdown done, let's get into the specifics of the fusion. Starting off, let's address the cringe elephant in the room. What are we calling this fusion? Yuji-To makes the most sense, and even kinda sounds like a DBZ flavored fusion. The problem is, I have self-respect and dignity, and can't bring myself to say that name more than once per every couple of minutes. I'll just use clever writing to ensure I never have to say his name again. So Yuji-To immediately gains powers of both fused parties and can perform new and more powerful versions of their combined techniques, just as Gogeta or Vegito had. But not only that, their powers are multiplied against one another directly. And despite Yuji providing a much smaller starting number than Naruto's, multiplying any number to Naruto's ridiculous raw power creates a character capable of surpassing the limits of comprehension of the respective verses. Genuinely, the first technique that comes to mind from this is the 1,000 Clones Piercing Blood Barrage. Summoning 1,000 versions of themselves and launching literally 1,000 speed of sound bullets in every direction with the ability to whip their arms around it to change the direction of the beams and slice everything in every direction, the damage of this technique would be unheard of. Dodging it would be a matter of magnitude of difficulty greater than any Japanese bullet hell. It's either you not only have the reaction and combat speed to recognize this attack is coming, but also have some wide-spanning defense that isn't vulnerable to being weathered down by a constant barrage of piercing attacks. However, the speed of sound was the calc utilized by JJK within the confines of their own power system, and as we know, the scale of Narutoverse is far greater, sometimes into the speed of light, depending on how you view certain feats during the later sections of the show, or if you're an absolute madman, as early as the Haku fight in Part 1. Regardless, I think the stopgap to this technique's speed would be the balance between compressing huge amounts of power into the orb before firing it off. And here's where the aspects of fusion would certainly help out. Both Naruto and Yuji are sort of amateurs at controlling their own power and use it in precise ways, but the knowledge and expertise that they both mutually bring, the exponential increase in power would skyrocket the speed of sound technique far beyond anything the JJK verse has ever seen, and likely create a technique that could power scale into speed of light and city levels of speed and AP respectively. Second, we have to talk about Naruto's signature jutsu, the Rasengan. We can go a couple of different routes with this, and I know that it technically shouldn't work this way, but God help me, I'm gonna do it anyway. Black Flash Rasengan. I mean, come on, the space-distorting black and red hue of their Black Flash exponentially increasing the power of Naruto's Rasengan. I mean, the perfect imagery already sort of exists for what this technique may manifest as if we take a look at the Great Spiraling Ring from Memna Uzumaki. Jujutsu Kaisen loves taking pseudoscience and applying it to the techniques, and I think we can adapt something like that here to provide a unique effect to this jutsu. If we consider what forces in the universe have the ability to actually distort space like a Black Flash would, well, we're looking at a very small list of items, but namely we have the black hole. Taking the principle from the black hole's insanely attractive forces and fusing that with Naruto being an Uzumaki, we have the perfect fusion of both lore and awesome power. The way I see it working is this technique would pull everything other than Yuji-To towards the center, thus making escape from its gravitational field nearly impossible. And if struck by it, we'd take the Kamui technique's form of durability negation by separating the target between two dimensions and consequently tearing them apart. It would be an absolutely brutal technique, which could scale as powerfully as Naruto's Rasengans did later in the show, introducing a Black Flash Rasen Shuriken and whatever the hell a tailed beast ball Black Flash Rasen Shuriken would be. Honestly, the further we take this, the more it sounds like Minato is naming these techniques. Finally, there's the domain expansion, Shrine, and Kurama. Truthfully, I struggle to mix Kurama's influence with any part of this fusion, since it's really just a flat amp and a chakra cloak. Then it dawned on me, a Binding Vow. Honestly, Binding Vows just sort of fix everything, and it can be used to alter the sealing jutsu that holds Kurama to allow this fused character to siphon off chakra at will, much like Naruto and Kushina did to unlock KCM-1. With even just KCM-1, Naruto's speed shot up to match and even surpass the Third Raikage's Lightning Chakra Mode V2, which blitzed Sasuke's MS on multiple occasions, while also giving Minato a run for his money, a character who literally teleports. and honestly, Shrine being utilized by literally thousands of fists, all capable of slicing at the soul, which by Naruto standards is nearly irreparable damage, see Orochimaru and Reaper Death Seal, what more do we have to do? And finally, the domain. Truthfully, we can go an infinite number of directions, but honestly, Yuji's canon one just makes the most sense. Naruto and Yuji are fundamentally very similar characters and would do what they can to talk no jutsu their enemy. All we'd have to change is the sure hit effect to his Black Flash Rasengan and it's wraps. Next, let's move on to his stats. If we're taking base Naruto stats by the beginning of Shippuden, we're looking at massively hypersonic speed and at least mountain levels of AP. As I'll state in every video, attack potency is not a measure of how big a thing a character can one-shot. Rather, it is a measure of how much energy a character can produce in a single attack. That is their attack potency. Otherwise, everyone in Bleach would have human levels of AP, which would make no goddamn sense. However, since Naruto and a lot of anime use an ABC scaling method where one character's feat is later used to represent the strength of another's, I'll use a lowball estimate for Naruto. Since we're using Potara fusion as the basis, we're going to be directly multiplying the speed and AP of Naruto and Yuji to achieve our final stats, then calculating the multipliers from KCM1. That would mean we'd reach in base a speed scaling of Naruto's massively hypersonic plus times a high ball for Yuji, who could reach massively hypersonic plus based on Sukuna dodging Kashimo's electromagnetic wave attack. This would put us well into massively faster than light in base, which is already a ridiculous concept to imagine and scales this character well into the highest tiers of anime power scaling. Their AP would end up being around multi-continent, anywhere to small planet levels, since the math ends up more complicated with the AP scaling. And that sort of wraps up the base form. With the base speculation done, let's talk about the ridiculousness of this if we just scale up the version of Naruto to End of Shippuden and consider those ramifications. End of Shippuden Naruto already scales well into faster than light and at least country levels of speed and AP. So to again multiply Yuji's statistics, we'd end up off both charts of both speed and AP, especially when considering how many multipliers these two protagonists individually bring to the table, with the In the Zone buff giving a final multiplier after the buff stacking of Sage Mode, KCM, and Six Paths Chakra, having already boosted this fusion to ridiculous levels already. This character would become immediately capable of soloing most verses across anime. The question is, how many? Well, let's actually take a look and see the threat level of a few shonen anime themselves. I like bullying, so let's start with Demon Slayer. Even if we're not scaling, Yujito's level of speed, durability, and wide array of soul-rending abilities is too much for literally the entire Demon Slayer verse combined. This fused character, by the way, would have healing on upper moon levels due to Naruto's healing factor being multiplied by RCT, creating what is effectively an alive Edo Tensei, infinite chakra, and unlimited healing capability. While not being able to conjure the literal sun to destroy Muzan or any of the upper moons, Yujito would bully these scrubs so hard he could literally just suplex them from dusk till dawn until the sun rises and burns them to a crisp. That's if he doesn't decide to tear their souls from their bodies with Shrine. My Hero Academia gets bodied as well. Even if we scale into a universe where the upper limit is light speed, Naruto alone carries the statistical weight of this duo, and Yuji's insane ability to create binding vows to completely counter every opponent by making false promises, much like Sukuna did, means that effectively with enough prep time and matchup knowledge, this character could scale upwards to even top tier shonen like Bleach or DBZ. Goku is another beast in Super, and I wouldn't dare disrespect the GOAT like that. But End of Z Goku might find difficulty wearing down this incredibly powerful, nigh unkillable, infinite resource pool of plot-convenient power-ups, binding vows, and a top-tier ability to talk no jutsu die-hard villains into becoming heroes. And that's sort of all I got for this video. I'm sure I could have thought of a lot more, but really I have no idea if this content is something people even want to see. If so, let me know in the comments, and I'd be happy to come up with many more fusions, what-ifs, and situations to put these custom characters into. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, help support the channel if you can. Thank you.